Becky from Lessons by the Lake. Today I want to talk to you about Reading Center planning. So Reading Centers can be such a great magical time for you to really meet your students' needs and help them develop into those strong independent readers, but it takes a lot of planning up front. So at the beginning of the year, the first thing I always do is make my student groups. So I need to think about how many. I usually have 4 groups, so I can have about 5 to 6 students per group. Then I look at their reading level. So beginning, I usually go strictly off F&P level and put them into groups so that they're with their similar level. And then I look more deeper into it. I think about decoding, fluency, comprehension. I think about all the factors that go into making that reading level. And I make sure that students in the same group have similar instructional needs. When I'm doing my guided reading, I can really target in on that with them. So then I think about the behaviors, the comfort level of the students, and I check the numbers to make sure that the groups are even and a couple groups aren't overloaded. If anything, I make my higher reading level groups and make them a little bit bigger and try and make my below grade level readers, those groups a little bit smaller. And then comes scheduling. Scheduling is the most challenging part of planning reading centers every year. So I have this free template for you to help out. So I have 4 groups and I have 2 centers a day, so this will be perfect for you if you have a similar format. So the first thing I plan is teacher center every year. I also have a version of this in the freebie that has the teacher center filled in for you if you want to go off of what I use and just add your other centers into it. So I always do teacher center first because I think it's really important that the 2 lower groups, which on my paper is group A and B, they meet with the teacher 3 times a week. The higher group, C and D, they only meet with a guided reading teacher group twice a week because they're able to do more things independently and they don't need as much of that time with the teacher to work on the strategies. So we do that first, and then you think about each of your other centers. So think about if, like I have a buddy reading center, make sure only one group is doing buddy reading at a time or it gets too loud. Think about things like that. If you have a technology center, how many do you have available to you? Can only one group do it at a time? Can 2 groups do it at a time? So think about what makes sense. So try and schedule the teacher, the buddy reading, the things that need those logistics early on. Like for example, I have a center called Focus Frog that it's really my assessment center and I'm seeing if the students understand the focus skill for that week. So I make sure that those are not until later in the week. I don't want them to be Monday because we haven't had much time to work on it. So I make sure they're later in the week, and especially for those lower groups, I make sure they're at the end of the week. So they have time during our shared reading all week to practice the skill and in our guided reading time to make sure that they're truly getting that instruction before I'm checking their understanding. So I'll put this link to this freebie if you want to download that and help this get started. Planning out your schedule. If there's anything I can do to help, please reach out to me. I know it can be overwhelming. Do it in pencil. You're going to make changes, but you're going to figure it out, I promise. So the next thing I think about are what are my reading centers going to be and what are my expectations for that class. Although I typically use the same center setup every single year, depending on the level of that class and the behaviors and the personalities, some of my expectations might change a little bit. Maybe I rearranged my room so where the supplies are changed. So I have this routine planning freebie for you that I'll also link below that goes through lots of questions just to help you really think through exactly what you want your students to do so that you understand the expectations for them. So read through the questions and make a list of all your expectations, because then those first couple weeks you are really going to be teaching and modeling and reinforcing and making sure that students have those expectations inside and out so that when you go into full-blown centers, they're going to run smoothly, you're not going to have any behavior problems, students are going to know what to do, and everything is just going to be perfect, most of the time at least. So I'm going to put the blog post in the description. They'll give you a link to this, and it will also go through how I teach my routines and expectations to my students and model them and practice them together so that everyone truly understands what's expected of them and how we build up that stamina to go into full-blown centers where everyone's working independently. Okay, so another tip I have for you is I do batch planning. So what I mean by that is that I do as much planning at one time as I can. So I plan once a month for reading centers. For example, some centers I have, like the Focus Frog Center I was mentioning with my assessment center, I know what that's going to look like. It's always going to be a worksheet with a passage assessing the skill that we're doing. So I plan out my skills for the whole month and all of my shared reading lessons, and I have an idea of what I'm going to do for guided reading, so I can make my decisions for what my Focus Frog is going to be for a month, even 2 months at a time if I'm feeling ambitious. And then I spend one planning period and make all the copies. And then I just have them in the folder. So I usually once a month or once every 2 months just make the plans for my reading centers and get it all done. And then each week I just switch out the folders, switch out the different materials, but I'm not every week thinking about planning. I have that ready. Each week I'm adjusting my guided reading lessons and some of that, but it's a lot. I have 5 centers, so thinking about what to do for each of them and getting the materials ready, it's a lot to do week to week. So the more you can batch plan that and have everything copied and ready to go and just in folders and you pull it out, it makes it very easy and it makes it flow really well for you. And having a consistent routine, like similar looking activities each week, really helps students understand the expectation when they get to that center, so they know what to do, they're used to it, it's not something brand new, just a little different and different engagement every week. So that really helps. Like for my Seek and Find station, we always work on a sight word in a different modality. These are differentiated, but I still can copy them multiple weeks out, pick out my sight word for the week, and have them ready to go to just put in the different centers for the kids. So the more you can plan at once, the better. I find that it takes me just about as much time to pick out one sight word. It only takes me a few seconds longer to pick out 5 sight words for the next 5 weeks. So just think of those little time-saving moments will just help your centers run better and feel better overall. I also have my guided reading materials prepped. So although week to week we may use different books and different texts and that type of thing, I always have whiteboards available. We use pinch cards for assessments. I have laminated flip books that the students write in. So all of my manipulatives, where I sit at my table, they're always set up right next to me so that I can pull them out. So I'm not always thinking, oh, what do I need for that week? What will work? So that at a moment's notice, I can pull it out and not have to prep anything in advance. It's already there and accessible for me to go. And another thing that helps with planning in advance is think about your makeup work plan. So if students are at the nurse, if they're absent, if they get pulled out for an assessment, whatever the case is, which of your centers do you want your students to make up, which are okay for them to miss? Like for me, it's most important for them to make up the Focus Frog Center to make sure that I'm getting that weekly assessment to see how they're doing with our focus reading strategy. So when are they going to make it up? How are you going to facilitate that? I usually have them work on it during SSR if that's the only time we have available. So make that plan so that work isn't building up and you're not noticing that, oh, they're getting pulled out for speech every Thursday, so they haven't done Focus Frog in the past 3 weeks. I don't have any assessments for them. So make sure you're figuring out how you're going to track that and hold them accountable for what work they're turning in and how you're going to make it up if they're missing that work. So that's just an overview of how I do my planning. I'll link some blog posts below to give you even more information. I'm doing a whole series of videos right now about my reading centers, so if there's anything else you want to know, look at my channel and check them out, and make sure you subscribe so you can stay up to date on all the information that I'm giving. And I hope this is helpful for you in your classroom. Make sure to go grab these freebies so you can get started planning your reading centers. Thank you for stopping by.